Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Post-Podium, a podcast where former Jeopardy contestants are instead given questions and asked to provide answers. I'm your host, Jeric Brual, and today I'm actually not joined by a guest. Today's episode is actually a special one, as a couple of announcements were made in a new blog post from Jeopardy executive producer Michael Davies. The post contained 4 announcements, the main one confirming that Jennings and Mayim Bialik are the official co-hosts of Jeopardy for the foreseeable future, starting with season 39 in September. Ken will be hosting for the rest of 2022 and will also be hosting the inaugural Second Chance tournament and highly anticipated Tournament of Champions in the fall. Meanwhile, Mayim will be the host of Celebrity Jeopardy on ABC Primetime beginning Sunday, September 25th. She'll take over for Ken come January 2023 and will host, quote, a couple of new tournaments as well as the Jeopardy National College Championship and as many weeks as she can manage with her other primetime commitment to Call Me Kat, end quote. Davies also promises not to flip-flop between hosts too often and will keep us at home updated regularly about the hosting schedule. Moving on, the next piece of news is in regards to the off-season. Season 38 of Jeopardy concluded last Friday, July 29th, and instead of airing reruns of past tournaments like in off-seasons past, Davies and the producers at Jeopardy have selected some of their, quote, favorite episodes of the season featuring some of our closest games, super champions, and some of the people who will be announced as part of our inaugural Second Chance competition, end quote. In addition, Jeopardy will also be on the content grind this summer by uploading 3-minute daily recaps on their website and across their social media of that day's game, featuring highlights and key moments for anyone who might have missed it. And finally, the most intriguing piece of news to come out of this blog post, in my opinion, Davies and the Jeopardy producers will be hosting a weekly podcast called Inside Jeopardy that will give listeners an inside look into everything going on behind the scenes, gameplay analysis, behind the scenes stories, official announcements, and special interviews. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, if you ask me, I think this is great. Yes, this means more competition for Post-Podium, but speaking as a Jeopardy fan, I love how Davies is committed to giving fans the content they deserve. Obviously, as part of the team that runs the show, you'll probably get more out of listening to the official podcast, but in light of this news, I still want to continue Post-Podium because I'm passionate about Jeopardy. I love watching the show, I love breaking down games, and I especially love the conversations I have with my guests. I think because our podcast serves such a niche market, it would actually be a slight disservice to the community we've built as fans of the show or trivia at large. Anyway, on Monday, August 1st, when the first episode of Inside Jeopardy releases, the Second Chance tournament roster will be announced as well as more details on Davies' plans for Jeopardy moving forward. And for the rest of this special episode of Post-Podium, I'm going to share my predictions for who I think will be in the inaugural SET. Now, before I begin, let me just say up front that these are just my opinions. Come Monday, I could be totally off and none of my predictions come true. Take them with a grain of salt. I also apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's names or misgender anyone by accident. Rest assured, corrections will be made and can be found in the episode description. With that being said, I will now share my methodology. I manually went on JArchive, looked at every non-winning contestant since the 2021 Tournament of Champions, and for every contestant who managed a Coryat score of $10,000 or more, I logged them into a Google Sheet. In total, I narrowed it down to 161 potential SCT candidates. For each contestant who made the shortlist, I recorded their name, occupation at the time of recording, city of origin, and thanks to the Jeopardy fan, their correct clue percentage, buzz percentage, daily double conversion percentage, final Jeopardy conversion percentage, and their Coryat score. From there, I played with a couple different sorting methods, determining the top 14 for each filtering method. And the reason I looked at the top 14 is because A, Isaac Applebaum, the 4th place finisher in the Jeopardy National College Championship, is already confirmed a participant in the SCT, and B, we're assuming 15 contestants total will be in this tournament. The sorting methods I used were sorting by Coryat score after accounting for Final Jeopardy. In other words, the contestants with the highest Coryat scores who got their Final Jeopardies right versus the contestants with the highest Coryat scores who got their Final Jeopardies wrong. And finally, identifying which non-winning contestants put up the highest Coryat scores against the champions of the 2022 TOC roster. Right off the bat, I'm confident in 4 of my picks, and they are Tom Philippos, Pam Schoenberg, Tracy Pitzel, and Sarah Snyder. Tom put up the highest non-winning Coryat score against Ryan Long with $18,600, but he lost because Final Jeopardy ended up being a triple stumper, giving Ryan his 15th victory. Now, under normal circumstances, Tom would end up winning the triple stumper, but because Ryan didn't wager to cover Tom, Ryan ended up winning. And even if Ryan did wager to cover Tom, Ryan still would have won because Tom wagered everything. Pam put up the highest non-winning Coryat score against Amy Schneider with $18,000, but she lost because Amy got Final Jeopardy right and Pam got Final Jeopardy wrong, giving Amy her 10th victory. Pam's small wager of $300 would have gotten her the win had she got Final Jeopardy right and Amy got Final Jeopardy wrong, since Amy wagered more than enough to cover Pam's doubled score. Tracy put up the highest non-winning Coryat score against Matt Amodio with $18,000, but she lost because she got Final Jeopardy wrong, giving Matt his 24th victory. Matt wagered more than enough to cover Tracy's doubled score and got Final Jeopardy wrong as well. Because Tracy wagered more than $15,400, she would have won if she got Final Jeopardy right. Finally, Sarah put up the highest non-winning Coryat score against Matea Roach with $17,400. Because this final was between only Sarah and Matea, all Sarah had to do was wager to cover Matea's doubled score. For Matea to win, Sarah not only had to get Final Jeopardy wrong, Matea had to get Final Jeopardy right and wager at least $6,200. And that's exactly what happened. Sarah got Final Jeopardy wrong, Matea got Final Jeopardy right, and she wagered nearly everything she had, giving her her 23rd and final victory. Because of how close these four were to ending the reigns of these Ultra Champions, I honestly think they're guaranteed a second chance. The other 10 slots are honestly a toss-up. My fifth pick would have to be Jeff Smith, and if the name doesn't ring a bell, it's because Jeff is one of the few contestants this season who didn't lose to a super champion, but still put up an impressive Coryat score. In fact, he actually has the highest non-winning Coryat score of contestants from season 38. In his one and only game against defending champion Shri Kampela and fellow challenger Kate Cohn, Jeff put up a Coryat score of $23,200. He went into Final Jeopardy in the lead and wagered more than enough to cover Kate's doubled score, but because he got Final Jeopardy wrong, Kate ended up winning the game, being the only one to get Final Jeopardy right. And with the way the wagers panned out, Kate also would have won in a triple stumper. Pick number 6 is likely an audience favorite, and that would be Jessica Stevens, who was sandwiched between Matt Amodio and Jonathan Fisher during their runs. Jessica went into Final Jeopardy in second behind Jonathan by a mere $200. With the way the wagers panned out, had she been the only one to get Final Jeopardy right, Jessica would have won the game. The implications of this are huge, and so I think the chances of her joining the SET roster are really good and really high. The rest of my picks are non-winning contestants with the highest Coryat scores, who also went up against Super or Ultra Champions, which include Rob Kaplan, who lost to Megan Waxpress, Spencer Pace, who lost to Courtney Shaw, Chuck McKeever, who lost to Tyler Rode, Randy Moss, who lost to Erica Hasek, Stephen Newman, who lost to Brian Chang, Kelly Lake, who lost to Zach Newkirk, Jeff Myers, who lost to Andrew He, and Ryan Guzzo-Purcell, who lost to Jackie Kelly. Some honorable mentions of who I'd like to see in the SET: Alicia O'Hare, who put up the second highest non-winning Coryat score this season against 3-game champion Yangsheng Wang; Rowan Ward, who put up the second highest non-winning Coryat score against Matt Amodio; Coriana Tato, who lost to Amy Schneider in her 32nd game, also known for designing the daily word game Pundle and for just being an overall great guy; Tessa Matsuzaki, who put up the second highest non-winning Coryat score against Erica Hasek and was one $2,000 clue away from preventing a lock game; Joey Laverius, who put up the second highest non-winning Coryat score against Jackie Kelly, and also I distinctly remember loving his contestant story and personality when he was on the show; Barry Margilis, who, like Jessica, was caught between two TOC contenders during their runs, Erica Hasek and Megan Waxpress; Nick D, who put up the second highest non-winning Coryat score against Ryan Long; and finally, Cindy Zhang, whose sense of style I absolutely loved when she was on the show, plus her iconic penmanship. I mean, who could forget that? And there you have it, my picks for the inaugural Jeopardy Second Chance Tournament, which, to quickly recap, are Tom Philippos, Pam Schoenberg, Tracy Pitzel, Sarah Snyder, Jeff Smith, Jessica Stevens, Rob Kaplan, Spencer Pace, Chuck McKeever, Randy Moss, Stephen Newman, Kelly Lake, Jeff Myers, and Ryan Guzzo-Purcell. On Monday, we shall see which of my picks are accurate, and in the next episode of Post-Podium, I will be joined by a special guest or guests to analyze the roster, read into their Jeopardy history, and make predictions on who we think has the best shot at winning the SCT and joining the 2022 TOC roster. And with that, that brings us to the end of today's episode. And now this is when I close out the show by asking you to please rate this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. Post-Podium is available on all sorts of listening platforms, including Amazon Music, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Spotify, and Stitcher. So make sure to follow and subscribe for the latest episodes. I've been your host, Jeric Brual, and remember, if someone asks what you're listening to, always phrase your response in the form of a question. What is Post-Podium? See you next time.